Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Adam Does Hard Things. Tonight, I am here to talk to you about the Crusher 225EX. So, my whole goal this year was to do the Margie out and back. If you don't already know, I don't know where you've been. Margie Gessick, I finished the 100, big mountain bike race. The out and back is you start at the end, you do it backwards, and then you do it forwards. You have to be a Triple Crown member, and in order to get that status, I needed to finish the longest version of the Crusher, and I wanted to do that on the 225EX. Well, as most of you know, I did not complete that goal. I was defeated on the Crusher yet again. I made it 215 miles, and I had a hell of a day. So, dig in, this one's going to be a little bit long. I know I have a different YouTube. I don't have a on-bike camera. I don't have lots of exciting race footage to show you. I just got me and my vulnerability and some stories on what happened. So, here goes. My friend Tim Patterson and I set out with Jeff Abbott's as support. I spent loads of time planning out all the checkpoints and all the refuel stations, building the route. Well, I mean, the route was already built, but I had, putting the waypoints in, and we both had backups of our equipment. I was running my Garmin and Ride with GPS on my phone so I could track myself even if I didn't have signal, had all the checkpoints in there. And Tim had the same, as well as a Garmin eTrex handheld navigation device on his handlebars. So we had multiple backups, ways to track our checkpoints, and pretty sure knew where everything was. And we set off at 6 a.m. Michigan time from Champion. First leg wasn't too bad. Red Road is a famed hard one, usually very, very sandy. It was actually pretty firm. I had a little easier time than Tim because I had bigger tires, but it wasn't terrible. Met up with Jeff after Red Road for sandwiches and cleaning. And then we had a pretty long leg from, mile 44 to mile 85. We were on our own. A couple checkpoints in there, lots of what we call beaver mafia puddles, where beavers build dams off the road and flood the road. So, I don't know, foot deep to 2 foot deep puddles. Not too muddy at that point. Some good climbs, but nothing serious. Really, the first 85 miles wasn't too bad. We met up with Jeff at the Huron River crossing. There's a sandbar that goes out. So it's where the Huron River meets the Lake Superior. And you got to cross. I was a little concerned. I wasn't really worried about it, but could have been deep. It was about waist deep. There's a sandbar that goes, kind of juts out and then cuts around and comes back in. It was like waist deep, wasn't too bad. I ended up swimming in Lake Superior and it was great. It was actually pretty warm. So getting to that checkpoint, everything was pretty good. Tim had a little bit of stomach issues at that point, but it wasn't too bad. We were both feeling pretty good about it. I was very confident. My legs were perfect. I was eating pancakes, made a bunch of extra pancakes, and I was having that and Tailwind and salt tablets, and I felt amazing. Better than I could imagine after 85 miles. It was like I just started. Came into the checkpoint ready to charge all my devices, set everything on a table, plugged it all in, made sure everything was charging, everything was good to go. So then I changed, got all my food, sandwiches, packed my bottles, just making sure everything was good because we're going to have another 50 miles to L'Anse, Michigan, and that involves a 16-mile climb and a bunch of other junk. So L'Anse was our next refuel point. So once I'm all ready to go, I get to my bike, grab my Garmin and my phone, and my phone screen is gone. It is literally a whole bunch of white lines up and down the screen. Now, if you know, I've broken my phone several times and had to replace the screen. so maybe some moisture got in it. I don't know. When I sat it down, it was charging just fine. Nothing was wrong. Everything was fine. Come back half an hour later after changing and getting food, and it was donezo. No screen. Kind of seemed to be working. I was really worried about losing my checkpoint photos and getting disqualified, but it seemed like I was getting notifications on my Garmin watch, so my phone was still active. I still don't know because I'm still waiting on my new screen that I ordered online. So I'm gonna fix it tomorrow and see if it's working. That was a blow. That was frustrating because my ride with GPS was on there with all the checkpoints. That's how I was tracking it, and it was frustrating. I had a down moment, but it's like, all right, we got to keep going. Just a note, I'm doing this outside because inside is boring, and I figured it's Crusher, so having me stuck around all the bugs is pretty authentic. So just throwing that in there. So we soldiered on. Tim has a phone. He's got his eTrex. I have my Garmin. We have multiple points of data. We can get the checkpoints. It's no big deal. None of the checkpoints are really hard up until Rock Cut, so we're not worried. They're all pretty on the course, pretty straightforward. There's a plane crash around Mount Arvon that's a little worrisome, but it's not too bad. We're pretty sure we can find it. We have everything. So we make it through the 16-mile climb. Just tough, but not the end of the world. Mount Arvon, which was hard. It's a tough climb, but not the end of the world. And then Jeff wasn't supposed to be there, and he was. Surprise! We had a surprise pit stop on the top of Mount Arvon, so that was pretty great. Got a sandwich, sent some texts out, or tried to, with Jeff's phone. Low signal, but it was good to get an extra refill point, and then we soldiered on. Eventually we made it to Lance at a little after 10 o'clock at night, and of course everything was closed and it was starting to rain. So met up with Jeff, got all our stuff together. Tim changed. I ate a bunch of food, a whole bunch of food. Still feeling great. That was 137 miles in, and I felt like $1,000,000. I was absolutely certain that I was going to buckle, which means finish in under 34 hours. I felt great. Tim was having some stomach issues, and it was becoming problematic for him, and I was worried, but I thought he'd pull through. We got all our stuff together, and we headed out to Herman, Michigan, which was the next checkpoint at a railroad crossing, and it was immediately Tim started having issues. He got a flat, and we made the next area pretty slow. We made it to mile 149 at Herman and decided to take a nap in the van. And after a nap, sometime around 1 to 1:30 in the morning, Tim decided to call it because his gut was not good. He was not feeling well. He was nauseous. He was sick. Couldn't put calories in. So we kind of stuck. I was worried because now I have no phone. I'm a little bit worried about checkpoints. So what ended up happening was I had Jeff's phone, and he took his work phone to contact me in case of emergency. But not thinking about the app at the time, I was sleep deprived. I should have logged in to Ride with GPS and have my own account, because then I would have been able to load the route. I wasn't thinking of that, though, because Tim said I could use his eTrex with all the checkpoints on it. So I thought, okay, that's good. I'll have the phone if I need it, but I'm going to use the eTrex, and I have my Garmin. I'm good. So I have phone, Garmin, eTrex. So my original already failed in my phone, but now I've got a backup and a backup. We're good. So I make it to Mount Kerwood, which that was the first of many just sucky climbs. I thought that from mile 150 to 200 was going to be the hardest part, and it was. Mount Kerwood was miles of just puddle after puddle after puddle after puddle. Some of them you could ride, and some of them were just 8 inches of mud that just grabbed your wheels and just sunk you up to the calf in mud. And you couldn't tell in the dark which one was which, so you were just guessing. Maybe ride my bike for like 5 seconds and hit a puddle. And every puddle is like, there's a corner, and then a puddle. So you'd see the corner and think, oh, I can ride it. And then you'd ride, and there's a puddle. And it's 12 feet long, and you don't know if you can ride it. So eventually I just tried to go the ride around through the grass, but it was miserable. Make it up to Mount Kerwood, gave the sign the middle finger, took my selfie with Jeff's phone, and headed down. So I got it in my head that Rock Cut was around mile 170. So I was pretty sure where it was. That turned out to be false. It was actually at mile 183. So I get to around mile 170, and I go to pull out the E-Trex to double check where the flag is for the checkpoint, and it's gone. It must have flown out of my Devil's Kettle bag coming down Mount Kerwood or somewhere around there. So now I have no checkpoints. I have very limited cell coverage on my phone, Jeff's phone, and I'm starting to freak out a little bit because I remember kind of where Rock Cut is when I did the 100. We found it, and I had a picture in my head of what it looked like. So I tried to use Google Maps to place a pin and compare that to what the Garmin route looked like, because that's now all I have is my Garmin and the phone, and nothing was adding up. Every time I touched my Garmin to move the map around to find out where I was, it would explode. It would automatically place a pin, and then it would just reroute to it. It didn't allow me to confirm the pin. It just rerouted it, and the map would spin upside down, and it was driving me nuts. Part of this could be sleep deprivation. It was, 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. I don't even remember. I was having a hard time. So I tried to follow a Google pin. I wound up 3 miles off, about 2 miles off the course. And I thought the pin was taking me farther, and I thought, it can't be that far off course. Todd's sadistic, but most of the checkpoints, if they're off course, it's only like 500 feet. It's not 4 miles off course. So after, somewhere between an hour and a half and 2.5 hours of riding up and down these random trails, I kind of accepted defeat. I was like, I'm done. I didn't get Rock Cut. I don't know what to do. Like, there's not really much at this point I can do. I don't have signal. Tim had this little paper note on his top tube saying what miles the checkpoints were at. And it occurred to me, like, I could have texted him, but I had no signal. And even at that point, I didn't have any idea how many miles I'd wasted. So I was kind of just literally shooting in the dark. So lots of emotion there. I went from, I'm going to buckle this thing and get my first 906 buckle, to it's over. I got 65 miles to go, and it's done. So I vacillated between these two extreme emotional states of, I have quit, I'm a failure, I didn't do this thing. And then I'd get to a moment where I'd look at the map and think, well, maybe it's here, and maybe it's going to double back, and I will find it. So then all of a sudden I'm like, I'm going to find it, I'm going to buckle, I'm going to finish, I'm still going to do this. And then it'd take me the opposite direction, away from where I thought Rock Cut was. And I'm like, no, it's not going to happen. So vacillating between those two, the peak and the valley, just brutal. It was just, for lack of a better word, it was crushing. But I kept moving. You have no choice at that point. There's nowhere to go. You can, as the field notes say, no one's coming to save you. None of these roads are drivable. There is nothing out here. With the exception of climbing Mount Kerwood with all the puddles, the funniest moment of the ride, I stumbled upon a real estate sign. Like, this is in the middle of backcountry, and it's not even a UTV road. It's just puddles going up some random mountain, and here's a real estate sign, like, come buy some mud. UP's a crazy place. What can you say? So I kept moving, just kept moving. My mental state deteriorated quite a bit. I kept thinking maybe I'll finish, but ultimately I'm like, I got to get to mile 200. That's where Jeff's going to be. That's going to be that's it. That's when I'm done. And I felt like a total failure. I felt just terrible. Like, I let everybody down. I trained so hard and sacrificed so much, spent time away from my family to do this stupid bike ride, and it just felt like a waste. I was just trying not to wallow, but it was rough. I was in a dark place. And then I got Sunrise and Keep Riding, and the trail just went to hell. It was more mud than you could ever imagine. And it was climbs in the mud, and it was rocky climbs, and every descent was just miserable because there's 1.5 foot ruts, washouts, mud, rocks, every climb. You can't lose your focus for a second or you'd crash. And I can't crash because no one's coming to save me. I'm by myself. So I can't crash. I'm walking so much. I'm just keep going. And then I get the Trail of No Return, which is a freaking cliff with foot deep mud, and it goes for like somewhere between 1/4 and 3/4 of a mile. It felt like 5 miles. The bonus was that you didn't have to grab hold of trees to hold your balance because the mud was so deep it would just hold your feet in place, and you could just slide your bike up through the mud. So it was, it was something. I don't know why anybody would choose to go up that on their own, but yeah, welcome to Crusher territory, right? So I keep pushing, and then I wind up on this random intersection, and something in my brain went haywire. My Garmin at the same time went nuts. And when I tried to see where I was, the map completely freaked out and moved my pin again, and it changed my entire route. The route just changed, and then it flipped upside down, and I'm like, where am I? So I start trying to zoom out and move around, and every time I try to move it, it's freaking out again, and I'm like, I don't know where I am. My Garmin is showing me that I'm way off course, and I don't know what to do. I'm somewhere on Arvon Road, so I'm in the vicinity of Mount Arvon, but I don't know where I am. I have no cell coverage. My Garmin isn't working. I have no more backups. The backup to my backup to my backup flew out of my bag. So I'm just without any ideas. So I had probably my biggest mental breakdown I've ever had. It was bottom. I was scared. I'm a dramatic person, so over the top. I was freaked out. It was a moment. I prayed a lot. It was tough. There was a rough half hour. Finally managed to get signal, and I started texting people. Texted Mark Salm, texted Jeff. Jeff wasn't responding. I figured he didn't have signal. Texted Tim. Tim was already back at the Airbnb. Couldn't get a hold of anybody. So finally, Mark Salm texts me back and tells me that I'm on course. My beacon is active, and I'm still on course. And I'm thinking, how in the world am I on course? My Garmin is showing me way off the course. So I deleted my route, and I reloaded it, and nothing still seemed right. But I could look at the navigation and see the next steps that I had to take. And I thought, as long as I don't touch it, maybe it'll be okay. Mark said I'm on course. The beacon has shown me on course. He said I was on course for the last few hours, so it's either my imagination or a hallucination or sleep deprivation, and the Garmin's freaking... I just gotta trust it. Don't touch it. Just trust the directions and keep pushing. And then after that, so imagine I'm already defeated. I've failed this thing. I'm crushed. I've done 10,000 feet of climbing already, and I'm just like, I want to be done. And then I hit the most brutal hills that we've done so far, and they're just 15 to 18% for, and not the whole time obviously, but like a 2.6 mile climb and a 3 mile climb and a 1.5 mile climb, and they're all like 400 to 600 feet, and Some of this, if I was fresh, would have been rideable, but I was wallowing a bit and got back on my nutrition, so I was hurting and walking just so much, and it was it was brutal. These hills are no joke, just non-stop. You get this like 5-second descent, and then it shoots you right back up. So it was killer. I don't know that I've been that broken in a ride, even when I quit the 225 the first time. But all I could do was keep moving, because that's all you can do. There's no other option. I finally saw that I had a text from Jeff, and it said, "I can't get to you. You'll just have to keep riding." So that was it. He couldn't drive back there. This stuff is... There's these huge sections of shale rocks that you can't even drive over, and then just like giant mud puddles, and non-traversable by a normal vehicle. So just had to keep going and going and going. And finally, I start to get to where I think he's going to be, and he's not there. And I'm like, what in the world? I thought he was at Ford Road. Well, it turns out you're on Ford Road for this tiny little bit, and then there's like another 4 2-mile sections that you got to do before you get to the actual Ford Road. So it was just this mental battle of like, I wanted to stop, but I was like, I just got to keep going, get it done. I know I'm not going to finish, so there's also the feeling of like, I'm doing this all for nothing. Like, why am I even out here? I already am done. I can't finish because I'm disqualified, but what can you do? You just got to keep moving forward. So finally, I see his van, and my head just falls. Just the deep breath of, I'm done. Like, I'm done. It's over. I'm finally done. And he comes up, and he comes out of the van, and he's like, "Oh, you're doing it, buddy. You're getting there. You got this." And I'm like, "It's over." And he's like, "What do you mean it's over?" And I'm like, it's over. It's been over for 8 hours. And he's like, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "I missed rock cut. I'm disqualified. I couldn't find it." And he asked me about it. I'm like, there are a couple things I can think of that I could have changed. I could have taken that piece of paper off of Tim's bike and put it on my own instead of relying on technology. Because, hear me, technology always breaks for me. Always. It always breaks. I should have known that was coming. If I'd have taken the piece of paper, I'd have known the mile markers instead of guessing and not being able to text somebody because I had no signal. But you can't change that. And I'm like, in the moment, I did everything I could. I did not quit. I kept pushing. I did whatever I could with what I had, and it just wasn't enough. And he's like, "Well, you did your best." I'm like, "I did my best." And then everything just like clicked in my head, and all the failure just went away. And I realized what I had done. I had done 215 miles of the hardest, gnarliest nonsense I could even imagine. 15,000 feet of climbing. And I came through some of the most emotionally difficult moments I've had in years by myself, being, okay, not lost, but I felt like I was lost in the middle of the wilderness. And it changes you to your core. It's a different feel. I can't even describe it. It makes everything else easy, almost. It's like you face up against that and you push through it and you come out the other side. Like, what are we actually capable of? And I felt so good. I felt so good. And then I wasn't even tired. And I'm like, it's Wednesday night and I'm basically recovered already. I'm ready to go. I feel great. Physically, I was the strongest I've ever been. And through all that, it made me stronger. And while I didn't finish, I didn't succeed on the course, but mentally I succeeded. This was such a big day. This is the process. I don't think you have to finish this in one go. It can take a few times. It is a big ride. It is super tough, and just getting that far is an accomplishment. And I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of what I did. I'm very grateful to my family for supporting me and helping me through this. And I'm in awe of this event and what we as people are capable of. So if this is something you're looking to do, or even if you're just trying to do your first 50-mile ride, don't quit, because you are capable of way more than you could ever imagine. Just a few years ago, I said I'd never do another 7-hour ride in my life. And it's not just about riding, it's about everything in life. We got to push through those hard times, because life freaking sucks sometimes. It gets hard. Things make us feel like we're lost and alone in the wilderness, but we're not. There's always somebody there, and you just got to push through it, because it's the only option we have. The only way out is through. And you just got to do it. I can't describe it. I know people say I'm nuts, and some of us are just crazy for doing things like this, but you don't understand what it does to your mind. It makes you a different person. It makes you stronger. And yeah, the type 2 fun thing is funny to talk about, but it's about the growth. It's about the growth that you experience in these moments. And I mean, not only about pushing your limits, but just about what happens to yourself as you push those limits. And yeah, I'm so grateful for this experience. Gonna come back at some point. It's probably not gonna be for a couple of years, because I'm trying to really focus in on my kids and not be selfish with this thing. Like, I want to inspire people, but I also want to inspire my family and raise my kids well. So this is all a balance. Yeah. So if you actually watch this, like I said, it's long. I rambled on for 27 minutes and 28 minutes. So long video of rambling and talking and nothing exciting happening. But I don't know how you can recap a ride like that in anything less than half an hour, because it was 30 hours of every surface, every feeling, everything imaginable in one ride. So, man, if you got a mountain bike, you should go up and do it. Do a 40, do 100. Just get out there and do it. It'll change you, and you'll be a better person for it. All right. Thank you for tuning in to Adam Does Hard Things. I'll be back with the Wausau 24 report. Peace.